So this problem looks a lot worse than what it really is. Okay, and how we're going to solve this is we're going to do kind of a little trick here. We're just going to write this in a nice form, something that we're able to look at a little bit more easily. And then that will allow us to take something that looks unmanageable, like this problem, and go ahead and create something that we can work with much easier. So I'm going to make a substitution here. Okay, so my substitution is, I notice that I've got this thing is appearing multiple times, this x squared plus 4x. And so I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm going to call it something else. I'm going to call it maybe u. So I'm going to say, okay, let's let u be equal to x squared plus 4x. So we call this a u substitution just because we're using the letter u. And now, by doing that, I'll create the following. So wherever I see this x squared plus 4x, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug in the letter u. So I'm going to get u squared minus 26u is equal to negative 105. Now that looks a lot better than what we were working with initially. So now one thing that we have to remember is when we make a substitution, that when we go back to the very end of the problem, we're not solving for the variable u, although that'll be an intermediate step. What we're trying to do is figure out what x is. So I'm going to solve for u as an intermediate step, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to replace that u with this x squared plus 4x. And so what that'll allow me to do, again, is to work with something that looks complicated, solve it out without having to write down all of these different variables. Well, not different variables, but all these different pieces. And then I'm going to be able to go ahead and solve it a lot faster. Okay, so to solve this, I'm going to go ahead and move this 105 over. So I'm going to get u squared minus 26u plus 105 is equal to 0. Now I'm going to try to factor here because I think I can. So my first two terms will be u. And now we need stuff that multiplies together to give me 105, but adds to give me 26. So let's see here. I think let's see. So we need to mult and add to give me a negative 26. Okay, I haven't worked this problem beforehand, so let's just see what happens here. So 105, well, that's divisible by 5. If I divide by 5, let's see here. Well, 100 divided by 5 is 20, so I think I get 21 times 5. And they're both going to have to be negative. The reason they're both going to have to be negative is because this back one is positive and this is negative. So I need two things that multiply together to give me a positive, but somehow add to give me a negative. So they're both going to have to be negative. And if you look at that, sure enough, there it is. That gives us our negative 26. So it looks like a minus 21 and a minus 5 are going to work there. Okay, so that tells us that u would be 21 or u would be 5. But we're not done yet because u is not the variable that we're trying to solve for. X is the variable that we're trying to solve for. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replace that x squared plus 4x back in here for u. So I've done my factoring. It made it nice and easy because I used the u. But now we're ready to go back and substitute in. So I've got two separate equations here. So now I just need to solve both of those. Okay, well that's not a big deal because this and this, they're just nice little quadratics. So we're going to go ahead, solve them each separately. And there's our two little equations. And I'm going to try to factor both. We'll give it a shot. So here would be x and x. And it's going to have to be plus and minus because the back term is negative. And so two things that multiply together to give me 21, but add together to give me 4. Well, that's going to have to be a 7 and a 3, and the 7 is going to have to be the positive one because this is positive. Now back here, so that was nice. Here, again, positive and negative because the back term's negative. And I need to get 4. So it looks like I'm going to have to use a 5 and a 1. And it looks like the 5 is going to have to be positive. And sure enough, that will multiply out. If you FOIL this, that'll multiply out to give me this. So what do I get for answers? Well, I get x equals -7, positive 3 from the first one, -5, positive 1 from the second one. Now there shouldn't have been any restrictions because we didn't do any of our own squaring, and so we didn't have any issues with denominators. So we should get all of those solutions should work. So -7, -5, positive 1, and positive 3. Okay, that's it.